back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this morning's session. We will now continue with 4 short interviews on the theme of the convention, Cycles of Awareness. Our first interviewee is Antonio Girardi. He is the director of an important foundation that deals with innovation, education and training, and startup businesses. He has been a board member of the University of Padua for more than 20 years. He has been also a member of the Theosophical Society since 1980 and the General Secretary of the Italian section since 1995. He is the chief editor of the Rivista Italiana di Teosofia. He has written 3 books on theosophical subjects and also edited the book La Società Teosofica, Storia, Valore e Realtà Attuale, Theosophical Society, History, Values and Current Situation. Antonio will be interviewed by Marie Harkness, organizing secretary of the TS in Ireland.
Greetings, Antonio. Antonio Girardi has given theosophical lectures throughout Europe, Ukraine, and India. He is serving as the General Secretary of the Italian section since 1995 and is the director of the Italian monthly magazine Rivista Italiana di Teosofia. Now, Antonio, the first question. In general, theosophists learn about the value of meditation and prayer, and above all, about the importance of regular daily practice. Do you have any specific tips and tricks that you are willing to share in order to develop awareness?
Thank you, Mary. La mia risposta è molto semplice. Dal punto di vista della vita quotidiana, la preghiera, la meditazione e la pratica sono assolutamente degli elementi fondamentali. Va però chiarito un aspetto, che per quanto riguarda la meditazione noi non dobbiamo identificare la meditazione con una tecnica, ma la meditazione è uno stato di coscienza. Quindi non dobbiamo, diciamo, identificarci tout court con lo strumento, ma dobbiamo mirare a superare il dualismo tra l'osservatore e la cosa osservata. Martin Buber nei suoi racconti rabbinici ci dice che il rabbi si illuminò lavando e rilavando i piatti senza volgere lo sguardo altrove. Questo ci indica anche che noi possiamo portare la meditazione nella pratica quotidiana. Dal punto di vista della preghiera, la preghiera va detto che non è un chiedere, quanto piuttosto un ringraziare. Quindi dal punto di vista teosofico la preghiera è un ringraziare, è un mettersi in sintonia con tutti quei valori del bello, del buono e del vero che la vita ci manifesta naturalmente in tutte le sue forme e in tutti i suoi momenti. Da ultimo vorrei sottolineare come la teosofia abbia poi generato nella pratica un metodo che si basa sull'osservazione neutrale delle cose, quindi non andiamo a cercare delle conferme di quelli che sono i nostri pensieri, ma andiamo piuttosto ad essere dei veri e propri investigatori. E naturalmente per fare questo ci vuole dello studio, ci vuole della meditazione, ci vuole della pratica, ci vuole anche la condivisione, ci vuole la condivisione fraterna, quindi l'importanza della relazione è da mettere assolutamente in luce. E naturalmente da ultimo ci vuole anche il servizio, perché oltre che la grammatica, potremmo dire, ci vuole assolutamente anche la pratica. Quindi il vivere teosofico è un vivere che ci coinvolge ogni giorno, in ogni momento, nella nostra vita di relazione, nella nostra vita familiare, nella nostra vita lavorativa e anche, diciamo, nella nostra vita all'interno della società teosofica. Secondo una declinazione che è appunto quella di osservazione, studio, meditazione, condivisione nella relazione, arte maieutica e naturalmente servizio.
Thank you. Now, the next question. The Theosophical Society was once founded as a response towards the wrong emphasis on religious dogmas, scientific materialism, and spiritualism. From your perspective, do you feel the gaps between them have been reduced since then? Does that mean for you that people have become more aware? Please develop.
La società teosofica lungo tutto il corso della sua storia ha contribuito molto al dialogo fra le diverse religioni. Non solo fra le diverse religioni, ma anche introdotto, come dire, molto coerentemente con il suo secondo scopo, che è quello dello studio comparato delle religioni, delle filosofie e delle scienze, anche il fatto di poter contribuire ad un dialogo fra la parte scientifica, la parte religiosa e la parte filosofica. Questo è molto coerente dal punto di vista teosofico con il principio dell'unità della vita che noi troviamo, diciamo, declinato nelle proposizioni fondamentali della dottrina segreta di Madame Blavatsky. Quindi possiamo dire senza ombra di smentite che il metodo teosofico e la società teosofica hanno portato un contributo a quella definizione, diciamo, di culturale che è ormai generale, che fa sì che alcuni concetti come quello dell'approccio sistemico, come quello dell'approccio olistico, vengano considerate ormai un bagaglio comune di tutta l'umanità. Naturalmente il concetto sottostante è che dal punto di vista teosofico noi viviamo in un universo che comunica in ogni sua parte, quindi tutto l'universo comunica e naturalmente le relazioni fra i diversi elementi sono governate dalla legge del karma, che è uno dei cardini del pensiero teosofico. Naturalmente dovremmo anche chiederci però che cosa possiamo fare ancora per sviluppare questo concetto di unità della vita. Io credo che possiamo ancora fare molto, perché in realtà anche se culturalmente alcuni concetti teosofici sono diventati ormai bagaglio comune dello spirito del tempo, è anche altrettanto vero che noi vediamo che nella pratica c'è molta divisione fra l'umanità. Quindi questo concetto di unità della vita in realtà va ancora sviluppato, va ancora portato avanti. Naturalmente i teosofi hanno sempre avuto una grande sensibilità perché hanno capito che l'umanità, come dire, non può pensare di essere al centro di tutta l'attenzione del cosmo, ma che l'umanità deve essere in una situazione di armonia con la natura e quindi questo significa essere in una situazione di armonia con il mondo animale, con il mondo vegetale, con il mondo minerale e naturalmente la visione teosofica è anche ultrasensibile, quindi un elemento importantissimo dal punto di vista teosofico è che la visione del mondo non è solo la visione percepita con i nostri sensi, ma è anche una visione, come dire, che va oltre, una visione che va nella dimensione, come dire, anche ultrasensibile. Per cui è evidente che tutto questo ovviamente ha a che fare anche con quello che è lo scopo, il primo degli scopi della società teosofica, che è quello della fratellanza universale senza distinzioni. È chiaro che se noi non, come dire, non consideriamo la fratellanza, non avremo la vera attualizzazione del concetto di unità della vita. Quindi lavorare per la fratellanza universale vuol dire anche lavorare per il dialogo fra le religioni, vuol dire anche dialogare per, diciamo, per il dialogo fra le religioni, le filosofie e le scienze, e naturalmente l'indagine teosofica è un'indagine aperta, quindi è un'indagine che usa anche il metodo dell'ascolto, quindi l'ascolto degli altri, come possibilità di una propria evoluzione, di una propria realizzazione spirituale.
Thank you, Antonio. The next question. What, according to you, are the steps the Theosophical Society and lodges should take to attract new, younger and more members?
Penso che sia molto importante il dialogo fra la dimensione del lavoro della società teosofica e il dialogo e l'accoglienza naturalmente con le nuove generazioni. Credo che questo sia un punto assolutamente fondamentale. Penso peraltro che gli elementi fondanti del lavoro teosofico devono rimanere, sono indipendenti da quelle che sono, diciamo, gli aspetti generazionali. Mi riferisco, come dire, al riconoscersi nella tradizione teosofica, mi riferisco al fatto di essere coerenti con quelli che sono i 3 scopi della società teosofica e anche con quel metodo fraterno di dialogo e di ascolto che ha caratterizzato la società teosofica lungo tutto il corso della sua vita. Però è anche altrettanto vero che il mondo giovanile usa un linguaggio che a volte è diverso di quello delle generazioni, diciamo, più anziane. E quindi io credo che sia doveroso che anche nell'ambito dell'approccio teosofico ci sia una grande sensibilità per cercare di parlare ai giovani con il linguaggio dei giovani. Noi abbiamo avuto degli esempi, per esempio in Italia abbiamo avuto un grande teosofo, il professor Bernardino Del Bocca, che aveva assolutamente questa grande capacità, cioè quella, come dire, di parlare di teosofia in un modo che anche le giovani generazioni, voglio dire, comprendessero molto bene le cose. Quindi c'è un problema di linguaggio e poi c'è anche un problema di tecnologia, cioè è necessario, diciamo, che ovviamente la società teosofica utilizzi anche gli strumenti di comunicazione dei giovani, e quindi gli strumenti di comunicazione dei giovani sono i social, e quindi è importante che anche i teosofi, voglio dire, sappiano e possano utilizzare questi strumenti. Però naturalmente va sottolineato un aspetto: è fondamentale, il lavoro teosofico è un lavoro che deve essere sviluppato anche in presenza, cioè è proprio nella relazione personale tra le persone, voglio dire, che il lavoro teosofico trova il maggior spazio e trova ovviamente anche il maggior respiro. Questo porta con sé un tema a cui tengo molto, che è il tema dell'accoglienza dei giovani. Quindi nei nostri gruppi, nei nostri centri, è molto importante che quando si affacciano delle persone giovani, è molto importante che ci sia una buona accoglienza. Quindi una buona accoglienza significa anche ascolto, significa attenzione nei confronti dei giovani, e naturalmente tutto questo non può non essere basato sul calore umano. È molto importante quindi che nell'ambito teosofico la fratellanza trovi un'espressione non soltanto mentale, non soltanto di carattere generale, ma trovi anche una espressione concreta, che è fatta anche proprio dell'attenzione all'altro e del calore umano. Sono certo che se ci sono dei giovani che si affacciano, diciamo, alla società teosofica attraverso vari strumenti, se troveranno poi nella relazione un vero calore umano, potranno essere ben accolti nei nostri gruppi e nei nostri centri. Quindi io credo che dovremmo tenere presente anche un ulteriore aspetto. Molte persone che si avvicinano alla società teosofica, almeno questo sicuramente per quanto riguarda l'esperienza italiana, non sono dei giovanissimi, non sono i quindicenni o i ventenni, sono piuttosto i 35enni o i quarantenni. Quindi naturalmente dobbiamo tenere presente che molte volte le persone si avvicinano alla società teosofica dopo aver fatto delle altre esperienze e ovviamente sono persone in cammino, sono persone in ricerca. Quindi torna il tema dell'accoglienza, come dicevo poc'anzi, e torna anche però il tema del fatto di poter dialogare con loro anche con gli strumenti che loro utilizzano normalmente.
Thank you. And now for the final question. In the current apparent turmoil of the societies we live in, how might we become a reliable positive element in the work in service to humanity as a whole?
Io credo che la situazione che sta vivendo attualmente l'umanità in qualche modo ci faccia capire quanto bisogno ci sia in questo momento di teosofia. C'è un grande bisogno di teosofia e questo bisogno si evidenzia prima di tutto dal punto di vista dell'analisi. Prendiamo per esempio la situazione dell'epidemia del Covid-19, voglio dire, dal punto di vista teosofico, analizzare quali possono essere, come dire, le cause di un'esperienza di questo tipo che sta vivendo l'umanità, credo che sia molto importante. E anche qui dovremmo comprendere le ragioni karmiche, dovremmo comprendere le ragioni che hanno a che fare con l'assenza da parte dell'umanità di un vero rapporto armonico con la natura. Quindi sono tutti elementi che possono contribuire molto alla comprensione del tempo presente. Credo che il principio di fratellanza dal punto di vista sociale, dal punto di vista politico, dal punto di vista culturale mantenga un grandissimo valore in questo momento in cui noi vediamo che ci sono molti elementi separativi e disgregativi nelle nostre società. Solo una visione, come dire, che veda gli esseri umani in quanto tali e quindi con una capacità di dialogo vero, indipendentemente dal sesso, dalla razza, dal credo, dalla casta, dal colore, dalla condizione economica e così via, credo che questa sia la strada maestra per far comprendere a noi stessi in primis, ma anche, voglio dire, anche agli altri il valore della visione teosofica delle cose.
A heartfelt thank you, Antonio, for sharing your wisdom with us through the uplifting and helpful answers given to the questions put to you as regards attracting new and younger membership to the TS and of how all our members in the here and now can develop greater awareness in service to all humanity. May your inspirational vision for the future of the Theosophical Society come to pass. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Antonio, for your inspirational testimony about meditation as a form of awareness and also on the importance of service in theosophical practice. Thank you also, Marie, for asking these questions from Antonio. And now I have the pleasure to introduce our second interviewee, who is Narendra Shah. Born and brought up in Nairobi, Narendra was introduced to theosophy through the game of table tennis. He joined the Theosophical Society when he was 17 years old. He is actively involved in all of the activities of the Nairobi Lodge and section. Narendra has been the chairman of Nairobi Lodge and currently is the General Secretary of the East and Central African section. He regularly gives talks on various theosophical subjects. Narendra has actively worked on the boards of a number of educational and social institutions. Narendra will be interviewed by Sabine van Osta. General Secretary of the TS in Belgium.
Dear friends, welcome to this interview session. I have the very great pleasure and honor to introduce to you Narendra Shah, whom I will be interviewing the coming 20 minutes. Narendra is the General Secretary to the East and Central African section. What seems to you the key element in the process of becoming aware, and how does that element relate to the theme of our convention, Cycles of Awareness? And might you be able to illustrate that with a specific example?
Thank you. But let's go to the subject straight away. First, I would like to define awareness. Awareness is learning something, not only in mind or memory, but learning and knowing about a particular thing from all aspects, from all points of view, at a deeper level, tempered with wisdom. According to me, there are three key elements in the process of becoming aware. These are, number one, age; number two, observation and contemplation; and number three, experiences of life. Let us look at each of them briefly. Age. As a child grows, his understanding of concepts and things gets better. From the time he was born to the time he starts going to kindergarten, then to primary school, then to high school, and then to college or university, age keeps on playing an important role. As the child grows, his learning and understanding increases, gets better all the time. In the first 7 to 10 years, there is much learning from parents, family members, and the teachers, friends, etc. he has. Then, at the next age group, from say about 18 years of age onwards, life's experiences teaches the youth to be more independent and teaches him how to handle different situations, circumstances, and environments in life. This is a new type of awareness. As he grows older, say 40 years, 50 years, he becomes calmer and his thoughts begin to show increasing levels of maturity and wisdom and awareness. So age or different cycles of age is a key element to becoming aware. Next point is observation and contemplation. With regular and careful observation, followed by focused thinking and contemplation, there is greater understanding and therefore greater awareness. I want to take an example here to show what I mean. Take an example of a child who was crawling. Then at the age of 1 year or so, he learns that he can stand up and realizes that he needs support of someone or a piece of furniture on which he can hold on to. He tries to stand up. He tries, falls down a few times, stands up again, and he moves, he tries to move. As he learns, he soon realizes the concept of balance and begins to take a few steps at a time, balances and moves on. He continues to make steady progress, from first walking awkwardly, then a bit more confidently, and soon he is running. He learns much from observation and thinks about it. Similarly, at school, he interacts with other children his age. He learns a lot. First, he goes to school for a few hours daily. Slowly, the hours at school increase, but weekly, he is back home on Saturdays and Sundays, within the care and comfort of parents, siblings, and the familiarity of home. These are small weekly cycles. Similarly, at the end of the year and the end of each year, there is even a bigger holiday. These are annual cycles. During the long holidays, he learns much else by going to the park or to the sea or hiking up a mountain. He learns about nature and people and relationships. It is a continuous learning process, learning new things and new concepts. And by observation and contemplation, he becomes more and more aware. So the importance of observation and contemplation on the knowledge gained or on the things learned. The third key element is experiences of life. Awareness means the addition of experience to knowledge and learning, tempered by wisdom. It is something that is felt on a deeper level by the consciousness, not just the physical body. Again, I want to take an example of a baby. Whenever a child or a baby is hungry or uncomfortable, he cries. And so the mother comes, comforts the baby, cuddles him, gives him milk, and soon the baby becomes aware, understands, knows, and is sure that whenever this person, this mother is around, there is going to be no hunger, and the baby will be more comfortable. He is aware that he is safe and secure. It is a small example of how a baby learns and becomes aware. As he grows, he sees, learns, and experiences. He sees, experiences the birth of a baby in the house. He sees his elder brother or sibling going to high school and college, soon getting married, and experiences the birth of a nephew or a niece. He even experiences the death of an elder. With observation, with contemplation, with experience, he becomes aware of the cycle of birth and death. This is briefly how I would like to explain the key elements.
Thank you very much, Narendra, for this very thorough explanation on the cycles of awareness. When you say young, you also say the future, of course. So what, according to you, are the steps that the TS and its lodges should take in order to attract new, to attract younger, and to attract more members in the TS? Can you give us your view on that, please?
Thank you. Sabine, every country's circumstances are different. And people of different countries have different tastes, methods, likes, and dislikes. What I will talk about is more from my experience on the continent of Africa. One, I feel we should look at our three objects and their relevance today, after 145 years of the formation of the society. I personally feel that the three objects are still very relevant and important, but the approach to them needs to change. There should be greater emphasis on practical application of these thoughts in our daily life. Emphasis should be on newer approach and newer methods of achieving the same objects. Universal brotherhood, for example, should now focus not only on the human beings, but more on the oneness of life, and have more emphasis on protecting the lower kingdoms of life as well, particularly the environment. Things like virtues of kindness, for example, which in the early days was looked more as kindness to fellow human beings and helping them in times of difficulties, should now be extended to all forms of life. Today, there is a lot of new research being done on the laws of nature and all aspects of science. And these researches are based very much on science. And it is a beautiful example of how science and spirituality converge together to bring out the true knowledge. So, studies or lectures on these new researches would definitely attract members. These are some of the points I feel we should handle. Today's youth are more technology savvy, and they will like to see things on screen rather than listen to a talk. Thank you, Sabine.
In the current apparent turmoil of the societies that we live in, and we all know what turmoil that is, and there's even more than one, how to become a reliable, positive element in the work of service towards humanity as a whole. Just to conclude our interview, Narendra.
I know we are running out of time, so very briefly, Sabine. Altruism, our natural feeling towards the benefit of mankind. We should seize every opportunity we get to be of help and service to all others at all times. And particularly in the current period where there is a lot of turmoil, there is a lot of issues, we have the opportunity to assist whoever is in trouble, For example, the elderly people cannot go out much during this corona crisis. Younger people, we as members of the Theosophical Society, perhaps through the TOS or everywhere, can play a big role in assisting these people. Secondly, there is a lot of unnecessary stress and anxiety in today's way of living. The society and its members must do everything possible to make people understand that a lot of this stress, anxiety is self-imposed, and it depends very much on our attitude to life. So if these teachings can be given to them, that their life will become a lot easier if they just change the attitude. You know, in today's world, I would like to end, we have adopted such a fast pace of living, and we are rushing to whatever our goals are, almost blindly, like a rat race. On the other hand, corona pandemic has given us that beautiful opportunity to stop everything we are doing, stay at home, literally in 2 words. And this is a golden opportunity to review and reflect at where are we heading to? What are our goals? Are they really worthwhile? Are those goals that we are driving ourselves crazy for really important, really essential? What if corona strikes? All those goals will be of no use. So that reawakening, this corona pandemic can really give us that beautiful opportunity to rethink. That's all, Sabine, I would like to point out here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Narendra. And so it seems then, when I hear your last response to the question, that maybe corona is after all a bit of a blessing in disguise, in the sense of it makes us, or it puts us in a circumstance to actually become aware of how we are actually living, and take the time to have a look on that, and to maybe even question ourselves.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Narendra, I really want to thank you for your very clear ideas, for having shared them with us. And no doubt there will come other opportunities in the future where Brussels and Nairobi can cooperate together over the air.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Narendra.
Thank you so much, Narendra, for sharing your own experience of the cycle of life as it plays out during a lifespan, from childhood to full awareness. And thank you also, dear Sabine, for interviewing Narendra. Now I am glad to introduce our third interviewee, who is Torra Burón. She was born in Barcelona, Spain, into a theosophical family. Professionally, she was a high school teacher for 37 years. She is retired from her job, thus dedicating full time to the theosophical work. In the TS, she was active in the European Federation of Young Theosophists in the 1970s. Later, she was vice president of the Spanish section and was also a member of the National Executive Committee as well. For a short period, she was a member of the executive of the European Federation. Presently, she is the General Secretary of the Spanish section. Ángels will be interviewed by Carlos Guerra, the General Secretary of the TS here in Portugal.
Friends, it is my great pleasure to interview our friend Ángels Torra Burón, who is the General Secretary of the Spanish section of the Theosophical Society. I would like very much to put to you some questions, Ángels, in the context of the theme of our convention, which is awareness, basically awareness. It is really a challenging theme to all of us. The first question is the following one. On the overall theme of this international convention, cycles of awareness, we are all familiar with the cycles in nature. How would you describe the cycles when it comes to spiritual life and development?
Well, cycles are very apparent. We can follow them during all the seasons and all these. When it comes to the spiritual life and development, it is certainly much more slow. My impression is that for the general public, it is going even more slowly than in those times of Blavatsky. Because nowadays we have so much social media, for example, they take away all the attention of the average public. There are so many people really caught up with all this garbage that is going on. And then if we compare, for example, those who are really attached to the media and those who are really interested in theosophy, for example. So we see a huge difference, because comparatively, those interested in theosophy and the spiritual side of life are much, much less than those who are interested in the, let's call it, mundane life, right? And then sometimes it is hard work to keep up, you know, at least to keep the level of our interests. However, I think that those who are interested in theosophy, for example, are privileged because it's like a path that can help us to get closer or go forward towards these this one-pointedness, this goal that we all have, at least inside. And I would say that what we are doing now is really continuing the task that Madame Blavatsky started when she, together with Colonel Olcott and Judge and all the others, founded the society, the Theosophical Society, which was seeds so that humanity can grow, can become aware, can awake, can really rediscover the divine essence within. So if, as I see it, our task is continuing to plant the seeds that will probably grow up later. A lot of people call spiritual things that are not really spiritual. And they believe that they are, but they are just sitting in the astral light, they, you know, like the tarot cards and all these readings, which of course exist and can have certain effects as well. But is that really spiritual? I have my doubts in here, but you know, the impression is that they are just opening the Kamaloka door, and that's all. So I think that the conclusion is that the spiritual development is much slower than probably the material one.
Thank you very much, Angels, for your approach to the team. The second question I would like to put to you is the following one. In general, Theosophists learn about the value of meditation and prayer, and above all about the importance of regular, maybe daily practice. Do you have any specific tips and tricks that you are willing to share in order to develop awareness?
Okay, tips and tricks are probably individual things. What is a tip for me can probably, or is rarely useful for another person. Each one of us need to find their own tips and their own tricks on one hand. On the other hand, the question talks about meditation and prayers, and well, the answer is very clear. If you go to the Guide to Theosophy, Madame Blavatsky says very clearly, we don't pray, we prefer to act. All in all, in short. But obviously all these activities are positive, meditation and prayers. At least it makes you aware that you are not only the body that you inhabit, and that there is a oneness, and then there is this universal brotherhood that we have to put into practice more than probably sitting and praying and waiting. Blavatsky says waiting doesn't make you self-independent because you're depending on someone else. However, I would say that the important thing that we do is just to do our duty. First of all, discover what is our duty in this life, because each one of us we are here to accomplish something, and discovering this is already something important. And once you discover your duty or your dharma or what you have come here to do, then things go smoothly, probably. And also, I think that being practical is very important. Instead, I mean, she says we don't pray, we prefer to act, being altruistic, doing things for others and helping humanity in any way that we can help. I would like to mention this story about the little monk and his guru or master, and he was asking his master, what can I do to be enlightened? And then the master said, chop wood and carry water. And then he chopped wood and carried water, and then after a long time, he really became aware, enlightened, or whatever. He improved. So he came back and said, now I am enlightened. Now, what should I do? And then his master said, chop wood and carry water, which to me means that we have to accomplish what we have come here to do. Whatever it is, and strive eagerly to approach, to go in the direction of this one-pointedness, this goal, inner goal that our higher self knows, and we have to listen to it.
Thank you so much, Angels, for your words and also for the way you have clarified the questions. Thank you very much, Angels.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angels, for pointing out the role of theosophists as they plant the seeds of awareness, and also for helping us understand the true meaning of prayer. Thank you, dear Carlos, for having interviewed Angels. Our fourth interviewee is Krista Umbjarv. She joined the Theosophical Society in 2005. Since 2014, she is a member of the French section where she works as a volunteer. She also works for the Éditions Adiar and publishes theosophical books in the French language. Since 2012, she is in the Executive Committee of the European Federation of the TS and currently serves as its secretary. In 2019, she was elected to the Council of the TS in France and is currently its secretary. She is also elected to the Council of the ITC in Naarden. Krista will be interviewed by Patrizia Calvi, secretary of the Italian section of the TS.
Dear friends, it is my great pleasure to introduce you to Krista Umbjarv, a young theosophist, but already a protagonist on the theosophical scenario. Krista is now the secretary of the European Federation of the Theosophical Societies and of the French section. And now we are going to ask her the first question. On the overall theme of this international convention, cycles of awareness. We are all familiar with the cycles in nature. How would you describe the cycles when it comes to spiritual life and development?
As there are cycles in nature, it is logical to presume that we as human beings and our spiritual development follow also certain cycles because we are part of nature. Often the spiritual path is described as an upward spiral, but I think that our experience gives us the impression that we are not always going upwards. Sometimes we seem to be going downwards. We have moments in life when everything seems to work out well. And then we also have times that are more difficult to deal with. Hugh Sherman talks about these cycles in his book, The Round of Experience, in terms of ages. So according to him, every action that we do follows a certain pattern of ages. He brings the example of painting a gate. So we start off from golden age with the idea that we would like to paint the gate. Then we go through silver and bronze ages which correspond to planning and buying the paint, etc. Then Iron Age will come. It means that we are actually doing the job of painting the gate, and while doing it, likely putting some paint on us also. But the action does not end in this Iron Age. We will clean ourselves and the brushes of the paint and move through Bronze and Silver Ages back to Golden Age, where we can admire our work. So he describes how an idea or some project becomes a reality. And, in the same way, there are smaller and bigger cycles in spiritual development. Often when people come to the spiritual path and meet theosophy, they feel like they have found something valuable, precious. And there is this ideal, and it corresponds to this golden age. Then we begin to study and to try to sort out what is what, and gather tools to deal with different habits and the patterns of the mind, meaning that we are moving through Silver and Bronze ages. This will lead to Iron Age, where we are actually working on things with our traits of character, habits, difficulty to be aware, and so on. So if there is not a good basis, then people can be stuck in this age for a very long time, because instead of facing things as they are and getting our hands in a way dirty while working on things, they consciously or unconsciously avoid dealing with things, attaching themselves instead to this projection or ideal, what they are or what they would like to be. This will again lead to a discrepancy between what exists as a fact and what is the image that we would like to have of ourselves. It can be a difficult moment because we see what needs to be dealt with, but there is not yet this complete confidence that all of this can be dealt with and sorted out. So HPB describes this state partly in practical occultism. She says that when we put effort and try to deal with the weaknesses of our nature, we will begin to feel an indescribable vacuum and blankness in our heart. So she explained that this state should not be feared of, because it shows that we are moving in the right direction. But I think it is rare that people on the spiritual path see such a state as something that they consider a normal phase of development. I think rather this state is seen as something abnormal and often unbearable that should be dealt with or removed. So learning about these psychological and inner cycles can then give us the tools to deal with various situations and psychological states, which I would say, unless we know a bit about the process, can make us take a few steps backwards when it is really not necessary. I think without this knowledge and understanding of cycles and different processes that take place, it is possible that we stay stuck in this Iron Age much longer than is needed. But when we persevere, we start to see that our effort gives results, and the different pieces of the puzzle start to fall in their place. Meaning we start to see glimpses of the Bronze and later Silver Ages. Obviously, there are smaller and bigger cycles, and even every effort can be seen as a small cycle. But if we are aware about these processes, then even this basic theoretical knowledge of such cycles can help us to understand life. Even now, I mean, in this current situation of the pandemic, we can see, if we look, how it is part of some cycle, although it might be different for each. I mean, in times in our life, we have different conditions and availability. At a certain moment, we might have a lot of work and little time to study or reflect. And another moment in life, we will have a lot of time to study, reflect, and meditate. If when we are busy with work, we create this constant discrepancy with reality by wanting the conditions to be different, and if when we are in this situation in which we have a lot of time to reflect, study, and meditate, and we do not take the most out of these situations, then we will lose or miss an opportunity to learn. There are a lot of people who during this time of the pandemic are busier than ever with work. There are also people who are alone in complete lockdown with seemingly nothing to do. But I think in both cases, there is something to learn. HBB said something in practical occultism that relates well to the current situation. So she gave an instruction, and she said, habituate yourself to solitude and to remaining alone with your thoughts. I think it is not wrong to presume that most people have not put it in practice consciously. And now they are forced to do it by outer circumstances. Usually there is always something going on. I mean, some entertainment, some noise, and so on. Now, for the people who are in complete lockdown with nothing to do, it might be an opportunity to learn what HBB suggested, or an opportunity to discover that there is a possibility to serve and to do something. For example, everyone has the possibility to contact their local lodge or section and say that they have an hour or two free per week, or maybe even more, and that they can volunteer to do something from their home to be useful. So there is really the question of how we see and deal with the current situation and how it fits into the cycles of our spiritual life. We can have a sense of agency even in this present situation, although it might not be so obvious at first glance.
Now the second question. What seems to you the key element in the process of becoming aware? Can you illustrate it with a specific example?
The key element is obviously mindfulness, but also seeing everything on a larger scale. We speak about meditation as one of the three pillars of the theosophical practice. But even if we were able to meditate an hour or two every day, the question is really what do we do with the rest of 23 or 22 hours? HPB said something again in the practical occultism that seems to be quite relevant. I mean, although the word occultism might give the feeling to many that this book is something out of our scope, the second part, entitled Some Practical Instructions for Daily Life, is really useful for anyone who wishes to put theosophy into practice. So she said in this second part that the springing up of evil thoughts is less harmful than that of idle and indifferent ones. Because as to evil thoughts, you are always on your guard, and having determined to fight and conquer them, this determination helps to develop the willpower. Indifferent thoughts, however, serve merely to distract the attention and waste energy. So she said that when evil, or I would say thoughts indicating irritation and anger, spring up, we deal with them as soon as we notice them, because we realize that they are not healthy, as they hurt both ourselves and the others. Yet we have a completely different attitude towards idle thoughts. Generally, we see them as something neutral and not hurting anyone. For us, they are not harmful. Yet Blavatsky said that they are worse than evil thoughts. I mean, we can easily waste a lot of time thinking idle thoughts. In the past decade or two, it has become more and more easy because of social media platforms. I mean, although they are a good way of keeping contact with people and for making theosophy available, I think everyone has at some point realized how we have spent an hour, or if not hours, on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. Time just flies. And it flies because these platforms are designed to keep our attention engaged. It is really our attention and time that has become a product that is being sold to advertisers. Consequently, it is now much easier to get lost in idle thoughts than it was some 50 years ago, or even in HPB's time. So more effort and discipline are needed. And probably when the effort is greater, well, the result will hopefully also be more profound. So in the same book, HPB gave another useful instruction. It is not some high metaphysical idea or something complicated. It is remarkably simple instruction, but it demands some discipline and regularity. She said that in the evening, we should review actions of the day. If we take a moment to do it, we start to see how and on what we spend our time. It also helps us to have a realistic outlook on life, because it will enable us to see whether what we do is in harmony with what we want. If we wish to become aware, but at the same time we are spending most of our time in idle thoughts, which would rather undermine attentiveness, we in fact sow the seeds of inattentiveness. So seeing this will help us to see the need to change our life, so that what we want would not just stay a wishful thinking.
So, heartfelt thanks, dear Krista, for sharing your thoughts with us through your meaningful answers. Your touching words can inspire all of us on the path towards awareness. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrizia.
Thank you to you.
Thank you so much, dear Krista, for helping us to understand the role of cycles in our own spiritual development, reflecting the truth that we are one with nature and a part of it. Thank you also, Patrizia, for interviewing Krista. And thank you again to everyone who participated in these interviews. And thank you all, attendees, for joining this section. We will come back again soon to watch the video of the activities of the Theosophical Order of Service in Europe and Africa. Take care and see you very soon.